Story 1. Trash service involves placing a bag of unwanted items in a dumpster or chute, and it disappears. You no longer have to think about it or where it will go. Story 2. True literacy. Most adults can read, but there is a significant difference between being able to understand text and reading effortlessly. A surprising number of adults live full lives while reading at a third or fourth grade level. Story 3. Clean water from a tap is the result of extensive infrastructure, planning, and investment by a government that is committed to providing this essential resource. Story 4. Having a family car is a necessity for many. It is sobering to realize that billions of people around the world cannot afford the gas needed to regularly operate an old or used car. Story 5. Indoor plumbing, electricity, hot and cold running water, gas stoves, air conditioning, ice, and refrigerators are just some of the conveniences of modern living. We live like royalty in this era, yet we often fail to appreciate it. Story 6. Free education is essential. Millions of children around the world must pay for uniforms and books to access education. Story 7. Having a family that is not dysfunctional is important. My parents divorced when I was 6. Both were married, but my sisters and I were constantly physically abused and suffered terrible trauma. Additionally, all 3 of us were sexually molested. My 2 older sisters were abused by my stepfather, and I was abused by a male relative of my stepmother. I have no family connections and cannot imagine what that feels like. I am 54 and have never experienced gathering with family for the holidays. I have never attended a wedding or even been to high school. This is the impact of divorce and sexual abuse. Story 8. Owning a mattress, having a stable place to live, and being able to buy the clothes you truly want to wear instead of settling for something found in a thrift store. Story 9. Our dog does not realize it is a privilege to sleep in our bed with us. He sees it more as a right. Story 10. The ability to choose. You can decide where to live and what to eat. Choose what form of entertainment to enjoy, and then select a specific movie, book, game, or craft within that category. You decide what to wear and where to go. Choose which vendors to buy from and how much effort to invest. I believe that the quality of life is somewhat proportional to the number of choices available to you. Living in a country where, even when some of these choices are not yours to make, the vast majority are, is a privilege that is easy to overlook. We often focus on the circumstances that take any one of those choices away, without realizing all of the other choices we still have the privilege to make. Story 11. I'm not sure if this counts, but being able to eat what you want without thinking twice is appealing. I am a type 1 diabetic, which means I have to be on insulin to survive, and I also struggle with anorexia. Both conditions are challenging, and I envy those who can eat without obsessing about carbohydrates or calories. Story 12. Having a job that pays enough to comfortably eat 3 meals a day and provides a roof over your head will mean the world to many people. Story 13. I complain about how hot it is in my place, and people say, just turn on your air conditioner, as if that's an option for me. I rent and cannot install a window air conditioning unit without losing my damage deposit, and no place I've lived will install it for me. Story 14. Electricity. My partner is from Nigeria and reminded me how fortunate I am to have access to electricity all day, every day. Story 15. Never forget how lucky we may be, being able to drive, having job stability, having a job at all, community, freedom of movement and association, being able-bodied and not having chronic illnesses, being able-minded and not having major psychiatric conditions, shelter, food, water, a habitable climate where you are not freezing or burning, being alive. Story 16. Human rights are costly to develop and enforce, which is one reason why only the wealthiest countries have them. While some rich countries lack these rights, no poor countries have them. Story 17. Many autistic adults do not realize that having the time and mental clarity to worry about puzzle pieces versus infinity pieces is a significant privilege. Story 18. Water you can safely bathe in right here in your house. You can clean your face without risking an eye infection. Internet access is available, and it is particularly fast. Shops are nearby. Story 19. Making good choices. I know we are all responsible for our actions. What I'm talking about is being in the position of having to choose between a bad option and a worse option. For example, healthy food but not enough money left to pay the phone bill, or unhealthy food and paying the phone bill. Story 20. Sewer systems and toilets. If you didn't have a toilet to dispose of waste, what would you do? That's the kind of thing we pay taxes and work for, so we don't have to deal with our own waste. Story 21. Access to clean drinking water is essentially free, although property owners or leasers always pay the utility costs. Toilet access. Story 22. Education is a norm that many people do not fully understand is not an option for everyone due to factors such as poverty or disability. Even though many individuals with degrees do not find those degrees particularly useful anymore, and student debt can be burdensome, they have still had the opportunity and experience. Story 23. Wasn't it the CEO of Nestle or some other corporate executive that claimed drinking water was not a basic human right? Story 24. Being able to go to the grocery store and buy what you want without having to put items back or calculate every penny is important. I am on a tight budget, so when I make a list, I have to be very careful not to go over. Story 25. Traveling as an American citizen is significantly easier compared to many other nationalities, especially those from Africa and South America. For these individuals, traveling often involves a lengthy and costly visa application process that can be likened to applying for a mortgage. Even with all the necessary documents, they can still face denial due to unforeseen circumstances. In contrast, as an American, all you need is a passport which grants you access to most of the world. Most countries simply stamp your passport, making the process hassle-free. Story 26. Being able to afford to change your diet, such as adopting a vegan lifestyle or eating organic, is particularly important if you have children. Story 27. Fresh air, clean water, a safe home, clean clothes, a bed, clean blankets, decent shoes, a coat, and 3 meals a day. Story 28. Parents who are still married when you are middle-aged. Running water, flushable toilets, television, and electricity. Story 29. Being a vegetarian or a carnivore is a choice. You can decide not to eat meat or plants. Story 30. The biggest one I can think of is having parents who genuinely love each other. Many people take this for granted. Story 31. Being born in a place where your family speaks the language of your community can be significant. For first-generation children who are also learning a language that their parents or extended family are acquiring, I have observed the pressure this often places on them. On the positive side, more families are recognizing the benefits of being multilingual and are encouraging their children to maintain the family language while also learning a new language. Story 32. It may sound harsh, but the truth is that not having a child with any delays or issues is a fact. This does not imply that there is a problem. Story 33. Criticizing your government is acceptable regardless of your political stance. You have the right to express your opinions and mock your president in the United States. In other countries, this could lead to imprisonment or worse. Story 34. I believe being alone on this planet without having an alien overlord visit every so often would be quite lonely. Oh, I spoke too soon. Story 35. Perfectly fitting into any category. I am multiracial and have been told I don't belong to any of the categories I identify with. Story 36. Not thinking about racism until a black friend mentions it, then blaming him for being paranoid. Not worrying about possible violence while walking to your car after your shift ends at midnight. Enjoying a peaceful, quiet walk outside alone at night to gaze at the stars. Sitting in the backyard of your own home to observe the birds and trees. Sleeping in a bed behind the door of your own room, which can be locked at night. Reading a book in peace and quiet with nothing else to do. Story 37. Hot water, indoor plumbing, air conditioning and heating, clean water, beds, homes, stoves, and refrigerators. Story 38. The fact that I can call Trump a fascist, Nazi dictator and traitor who will begin to jail non-Aryans and void elections, and I will not end up in jail, speaks volumes about American freedom of speech. Most countries do not have the ability to call Trump a fascist traitor. Story 39. A free education is one of the greatest gifts in life, yet many people take it for granted. In many parts of the world, there are children who would love to learn, but it is out of reach for them. Story 40. Knowing your family medical history is important. I am adopted and did not have mine until I was an adult. Some adoptees never search for or find their biological relatives, so they may have no family medical history throughout their lives. Story 41. High-calorie, sugary, artery-clogging junk food includes cookies, potato chips, fried chicken, and more. It is incredible that we can easily access food that provides so much energy and flavor. This abundance is something our ancestors would have marveled at. While it's challenging to exercise self-control and resist treats to avoid weight gain, practicing moderation is certainly easier than facing starvation. Story 42. Not having to carry multiple forms of identification with you, just having a driver's license or photo ID instead of a license, birth certificate, social security card, etc. Story 43. What good thing isn't considered a privilege at this point? I can't think of a good thing that everyone has access to. Story 44. Minimalism. I can't afford to let go of the 7-year-old printer that still mostly works. Even though I haven't used it in a while, I can't replace it someday when I need it. The same goes for the pasta roller, the weed eater, the bike, the extra mason jars, the jigsaw puzzles, and the fabric scraps. I'd love to have an apartment that looks clean and tidy, with just enough for everyday living on a simple level. However, those who live this way are either more determined to do without extras or know that if something is really needed, they can acquire it. My house is cluttered with items I mostly don't need, but if I get rid of them and need them later, I can't just go out and buy new ones. Story 45. Running water and a city sewer. Growing up without these, I cannot express how much easier your life is because you have them. Story 46. Unfortunately, there is a great deal of entitlement among many people, making it easy to take for granted the things that others are struggling daily just to obtain. This allows some to claim we are the least free country. Story 47. Most angry people are generally ignoring many privileges. Story 48. Using a toilet is ironically a privilege, as not everyone has access to even a public one. Going outside without access is often considered a crime in many places. Story 49. My friend has lived at his family home his whole life. He lived at home throughout college, with his parents dropping him off and picking him up each day. He graduated with a master's degree without spending any money. He got a job in his field near his family home. At 28, he has 60,000 euros in savings and 2 new cars, one of which he bought for his mother. He was confused and offended when I acknowledged his privilege, taking it as an insult and claiming he worked hard for everything. I tried to explain that while he certainly worked hard, many people around the world can only dream of having the opportunities he had. I too have been very privileged in life, but I am fully aware of it. Story 50. Pets have needs that many pet owners do not meet due to financial constraints, lack of knowledge, and irresponsibility. They are a wonderful addition to many lives, but do not neglect them in the name of personal rights. Story 51. Literacy is essential. Some individuals underestimate anti-literacy campaigns, not realizing how limited one can be without the ability to read. While many believe such campaigns are beneficial, they may not understand the significant impact they have. Story 52. Parental leave offers the opportunity to stay home with my baby, take care of her, and be with her during her early months. She is my first child, and at just a few months old, I am amazed at how quickly she grows and changes every day. Story 53. Parental leave provides the opportunity to stay home with my baby, care for her, and be with her while she is so small. She is my first and is just a few months old, but they grow up so fast. She changes every day. Story 54. Sadly, millions of people, especially girls, are denied an education due to oppressive regimes or a lack of resources. If a family has the means to send a child to school, they are more likely to send a son rather than a daughter. This issue continues to persist into 2025. Story 55. Having a fallback. My relationship with my mother hasn't always been perfect. In fact, it used to be quite bad. However, when I could no longer afford to live away from home, I had a soft place to land. I feel incredibly blessed to be able to live at home again, even if it isn't ideal. Knowing that if things don't go my way in the future, I'll be able to come back again makes me feel secure. I will never be homeless, and that is an amazing privilege to have. Story 56. Driving. You don't deserve to drive if you can't behave and follow the rules. Many people shouldn't have control of a lethal weapon, including firearms, but that's a specific issue in the United States. Story 57. Grandparents and extended family, sports and clubs, living in one place for a prolonged period, being warm enough, driving or being driven, college or university, help from parents, child support or alimony, working a standard 40-hour week, working from home, having children, being a stay-at-home parent, going on vacation, attending concerts, dining at restaurants, and having food delivered are just a few things people often take for granted. Overall, we are an extremely privileged society, though some have more privilege than others. Story 58. Not having worms is a topic of interest. Most people throughout history and in the current world have had worms. They have been with us for a long time. There is even a hypothesis suggesting that the reason allergies seem to be more common in developed areas is due to the lack of worms, which our bodies have evolved to expect. However, it remains unclear whether this has been tested or if it is merely an idea. Story 59. When people hate those who take their own lives or harm themselves, it is often because they cannot understand why anyone would do such things. Story 60. Having access to clean water, food, and healthcare is a privilege that many people take for granted. Not everyone in the world has these essentials readily available, so it's important to remember how fortunate we are. Story 61. Not having to translate your personality into a professional version just to be taken seriously. Story 62. As an American, I value a functional federal government. Unfortunately, we are all about to learn what a privilege that was. Story 63. The privilege of having a complete and happy family. I was shocked during our recent school activity when my classmates opened up about their problems. It was surprising to see that many of them were struggling with broken families. Story 64. Clean, safe running water, a safe place to defecate, and access to electricity and heat are essential. I have experienced limited access to these resources at some points in my life, yet many others have never had these privileges and currently face much worse conditions. Story 65. Going on family vacations, both domestic and international, was a tradition my parents always prioritized, even when their finances were limited. I thought this was normal. However, adulthood has taught me that the socioeconomic landscape is not fair and that traveling is a privilege I have had and still enjoy. Story 66. Loving parents can make a significant difference. I have no idea what that experience is like. When I first started working in an office with a coworker who enjoyed gossiping, I would inadvertently share details about my life that made them think I was naive. For example, a coworker was turning 21 and received a gold chain for his birthday, a tradition from his hometown. The gossiping coworker mentioned that his mother had given him the gold chain. I accidentally blurted out, "You mean his mother knew it was his 21st birthday?" I didn't think before I spoke, as I was surprised. The gossipy coworker responded, "Of course she knows, that's her son. What are you, clueless?" In contrast, I received a Garfield 21st anniversary souvenir. When my mother saw it, she asked, "You mean you're 21 this year?" Story 67. Sleep. For those of us who work unusual hours, sleep is not something we can often get enough of. On our days off, we cannot sleep in because it disrupts our schedule when we return to work. Story 68. Toilets, especially those with seats that allow paper to be flushed, are essential. Additionally, mosquito bites that only cause itching are quite bothersome. Story 69. To live in a country where issues like vaccines, abortion, and fluoride in water are settled topics and not debated every 4 years. Those who question these matters are ignored, as they should be, rather than given a platform or, worse, promoted to the position of health secretary. Story 70. Americans rarely realize that it's a privilege to obtain a mortgage you only have to qualify for once. You receive an interest rate and mortgage payment that is fixed for 30 years, regardless of changes in the economy. You do not need to return to the lender to re-justify or reapply. When property taxes increase by 3%, many people react strongly, while in the United Kingdom, a homeowner has seen her mortgage payment double in just 3 years. Story 71. Air to breathe that is clean and does not smell of garbage, petrol, smog, urine, tannery, abattoir, sulfur, or coal dust. Rain that does not leave black and brown marks on clothing. Many of us grew up with air that was polluted. I was amazed the first time I filled up my car without having to hold my breath or close my eyes. Now, most people in Western countries take clean air for granted. Story 72. When I was a child, if I did something that made my mother proud, she would let me fill one of the ice cube trays with orange soda and have the orange soda ice cubes as snacks or desserts throughout the week. I don't think it's possible for most people to know about this privilege, as I never mentioned it to anyone. Story 73. Everything anyone has ever called a right. You may be born with those rights, but living in a society that actually protects them is a privilege. Story 74. No matter how much you dislike social media, the world will never be the same if one day any social media disappears from existence. Story 75. Being able to take a full breath without coughing, sneezing, bleeding, or experiencing any pain or discomfort. Story 76. I do not have any baby photos. I will never know what I looked like as a newborn. The youngest photo I have of myself was taken when I was 5. Story 77. Family heirlooms include embroidered blankets and wedding dresses. We have very few black and white pictures of only one side of my great-grandparents because the Soviet regime either starved my ancestors, drove them into poverty, or used them as soldiers in World War II. Story 78. A car offers the freedom to go wherever and whenever on your own, without the need to worry about getting rained on or sharing with strangers. Story 79. Having a blue passport means being from a powerful or wealthy nation that allows you to easily access anywhere in the world you wish to go. Story 80. Being able to live instead of just surviving means enjoying simple comforts, such as taking a shower, having desserts in the pantry, and using various electronic devices powered by electricity. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.